Thanks to Bellessa for sponsoring today's video. Stay tuned for an exciting giveaway. Have you ever finished a book and thought to yourself, maybe learning to read was a mistake? That's how I felt after reading Credence by Penelope Douglas. I'm not lying to you when I say that this is potentially the worst book that I've ever read in my life. It is a spicy romance novel about a girl and her stepfamily and her pursuit to go after every member of her stepfamily. Now don't be confused, that in itself is not actually the problem with this book, because I have seen a lot of people say this is just taboo, and if you're not interested in reading taboo books, then this is not for you, don't read it. Except this book is not just taboo. This book is like reading a horror story disguised as a spicy romance. In fact, when reading it, I felt both like I was committing a crime and that there was a crime being committed against me. So of course I did finish the whole book because I wanted to share it with you. So now we're going to read this entire book together and you'll see what I mean, because as we go on, this book just gets worse and worse to a level that I don't think you can even imagine where this is going. So to start off with, before we even get to chapter 1, this book actually has a playlist written inside it, which is the first book that I've ever read that has one of these. I think this is becoming a more popular thing, and I think it came from Wattpad. But one of the songs included in this is Break Up With Your Girlfriend by Ariana Grande. So that should tell you where we're going. Which is actually my cue to just say, this is my first time doing one of these kind of videos. I'll be very brief with this. I asked people in my community tab whether they wanted music or no music, and it was kind of split 50-50. So I've chosen to go with pretty much no music, just because it's easier that way. Some people didn't want it, they said it was distracting. But if you would like to listen to music, then you can listen to the playlist in this book, I suppose. Or may I suggest I have a lo-fi album called Lo-Fi Beats to Dematerialize to, that you could listen along while you watch this, or any kind of lo-fi beats thing if you would rather watch this with music. But I've just kept it music free for the people that said it was a bit overstimulating for them. At the very beginning of this book, we're let know about the main character Tiernan and how she had a pretty awful childhood and really terrible parents. It seems like they didn't really want to be parents, they just did it because it was the thing to do, and as a result they didn't really like her, didn't care for her, never spoke to her, and pretty much ignored her. The tire swing in the yard is the only thing that makes it look like a kid lives here. There were never any drawings in the house. None on the fridge or walls, no children's books on the shelves, no shoes by the front door or floaties in the pool. It's a couple's home, not a family's. Tiernan at this moment is sitting on the tire swing in the garden, and we learn that the tire swing was really meant for her parents, since again, it seems like her parents just forgot that they had a kid. But as this is going on, police and paramedics start showing up to her house, along with somebody called Mirai. Mirai is Tiernan's mother's personal assistant, and she's pretty much the only adult in Tiernan's life that cares about her or notices that she's actually there. And from Mirai in this scene, we find out that not only did her parents not really talk to her, but they also just forgot to tell her that her dad has terminal cancer. And don't get confused, they didn't just decide not to tell her this to spare her feelings. They literally just couldn't remember for long enough that they had a daughter to tell her this. The police found some medications in your parents' bathroom, Mirai broaches in her soft voice. They have your father's name on them, so they called the doctor and learned that he had cancer, Tiernan. They never said anything to me, she tells me. Did you know your father was sick? I shake my head again. Apparently he tried treatments, but the disease was aggressive, she says. The doctor said he wasn't going to last the year, honey. Because her dad is dying, her mother decides, I don't have anything left in this world without you. Definitely not like a child to look after or anything. And her dad is seemingly cool with this statement, so they put on some designer clothes, they lie in bed, and they cease to live. It's only the next day after this happens that Tiernan finds them and calls the police, which is where we're at now. They didn't leave me a note. Even now, there was nothing they wanted to say to me. So far, this sets the scene really well for what could have been a fantastic book. We're introduced to a deeply troubled character who had a difficult upbringing. This could have been a story of healing or a deeper explanation into Tiernan and her character and how she deals with all of this. It even could have still been a spicy romance book looking at these themes. And while later on we will look at how Tiernan deals with the death of parents who never really loved her, the way that this is explored is so deranged that I want to bang my head against the wall. It's also worth mentioning at this point as well that Tiernan's parents are also really famous and really rich. So as all of this is going on, there's reporters coming in and people are going to want to talk to her. So if you didn't know where this story was going and you read this first section, you think, wow, this is going to be a really good book. But all of that potential goes right out the window when Tiernan gets a call on her private phone, one that only family can reach her on. Before I move on with the rest of the video though, I want to tell you about today's sponsor, Bellesa. We're doing a massive sex toy giveaway, so stay tuned for more details. Bellesa is a by women company for all things sexual wellness, and they're on a mission to empower everyone to express, explore, and celebrate their sexuality. All of their toys are crafted with the highest quality, 100% body safe premium materials. Bellesa believe that sex should be fun, empowering, and 100% shame-free. Some of their products include the Pebble, the Air Vibe, the Demi Wand, and the Thump. The Pebble is ergonomically built to fit perfectly in your hand, and it has suction and vibration controlled independently, plus no annoying pattern modes. The Air Vibe uses dual stimulation, and it's silent, but very effective. And the Thump is a toy that does it all. It vibrates, suctions, and thumps, and it utilizes Bellesa's improved pleasure jet technology. And all of these are waterproof and also come in their own discreet charging cases. My friends at Bellesa and I are giving out free vibrators and gift cards to everyone who signs up to my giveaway. All you have to do is enter your email in the link which is in the description and then check your inbox to see your gift. Thank you so much to Bellesa for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get on with the rest of it. It's Jake Vanderberg, he says. Jake Vanderberg? Your uncle Jake Vanderberg. And then I remember, my father's brother, he finishes for me. Stepbrother, actually. Your father's attorney called me earlier, Tiernan, he tells me. Since I'm your only living relative and you're still underage, your parents apparently left you in my care. Jake points out that Tiernan's going to be 18 in a few months, so if she wants to, she can just emancipate herself and he won't care. And if she had chosen to emancipate herself, that would have been the end of that, and we could put an early stop to the crimes that this book is about to commit. But no. Then Jake decides to monologue for 3 hours about life in Colorado and how they work for what they have and sweat or something. Unlike Tiernan, who's a rich Nepo baby. But Nepo babies never seem to appreciate what they have, so Tiernan decides to go and live in the woods and sweat. Tiernan gets to Colorado with her Louis Vuitton luggage and is met by Uncle Jake at the airport, and we are treated to this lovely interaction. But who knows, he muses. You might just be running for the hills after a week at the cabin. Because, he cocks his head joking. No malls or caramel macchiatos close by. I turn my eyes out my window, mumbling, I don't drink caramel macchiatos. It's just giving those pumpkin spice lattes.
Pumpkin spice latte, please. I want it freezing, though. Actually, I just want a regular coffee. Those white girl pumpkin spice lattes annoy me.
I'm in love. Name?
Senorita Awesome.
Oh, and to continue the I'm not like other girls trope, we have this. We can thank TV for the rest of the world thinking California girls are all valley twits in tube tops. During this, Tiernan is wondering where his sons are because Jake has 2 sons and assumes they probably just didn't want to be there. Something else I'd failed to consider. They had a comfy testosterone-infused man cave, and here comes the girl they think they'll have to guard their dirty jokes around now. Girl, they're not gonna hide anything. I wish they would. I can't help but take another look over at him. He fills up the driver's seat, the sun-kissed muscles in his forearm tight as he holds the wheel. So different from my father, who hated being outside and never went without a long-sleeved shirt unless he was going to bed. Remember this description of her uncle later on. Remember the way that she contrasts him to her father. Because when we get to the real meat and potatoes of what is going to happen in this book, you'll see that this is not a relationship that should start with a comparison to the protagonist's dead dad. On the way up, Tiernan is eyeing up a sweet shop and is thinking about how she wasn't really allowed to eat eat sweets when she was a kid. So Jake just like turns the car around and they go into the sweet shop and he insists that she has to get sweets. This is literally a strange man offering candy to a child. It just feels like a very fitting metaphor. She decides she's not going to eat them, but just buys them anyway to be polite. And then the store owner, Spencer, says this, "Staying up at the Peak long?" he asks, sounding hesitant all of a sudden. The Peak? But Jake answers for me. "Yeah, possibly until next summer." The man's eyes instantly flash to Jake, a look of apprehension crossing his face. "Don't worry," laughs Jake, handing the guy cash. "We'll protect her from the big bad elements." When have you ever been able to control Caleb? Caleb, one of his sons. I look at Jake, but he meets my eyes and shakes his head, brushing it off. "Girl, run." Tiernan is understandably made uneasy by this comment, but she doesn't run. She doesn't even ask a follow-up question about what he meant. Instead, she continues to drive up with Uncle Jake, finding out on the way that they live in the middle of nowhere and that she won't be able to leave unless she has help because it's just so far away from civilization. She's essentially going to be trapped in a house with a bunch of men that she doesn't know, one of which is this ominous Caleb character. It's the forced proximity trope, but made horrifying. When they finally do get to the house, and this takes a long time because, like I said, they live in the middle of nowhere, we are introduced to one of Jake's sons, not Caleb, thank God. A young guy walks out of the kitchen, fisting 2 beer bottles, and shakes his head at Jake. His dark blonde hair is slicked back under a backward baseball cap, and he doesn't look much older than me, maybe 20, 21. His body, though. His strong arms are tanned dark under his green t-shirt, and he's broad. His crystal clear blue eyes widen and his mouth hooks in a half smile. "This is Noah," Jake introduces us. "My youngest." It takes me a moment, but I raise my hand to shake his. Instead of taking it though, he just puts one of the bottles in it and says, "Learn to like it. We drink a lot here." I won't continue doing that accent, I'm sorry. Noah fecks off to find a horse. Don't ask what that's about. It's so not relevant. But after this, we're given a tour of the house in painstaking detail. So much so that I am absolutely convinced that the author built this house in The Sims just so that she could walk around it and then recount it in the book. Not that that's a bad thing, that actually sounds like a decent idea, but it's all I could think of when I was reading this. Jake shows her to her room, and the chapter ends with this. "You hated my father." I turn my eyes on him, stopping him. "Didn't you?" He straightens and stares at me. "Won't it be uncomfortable for you to have me here, Uncle Jake?" But his eyes on me turn piercing, and he says in an even tone, "I don't see your father when I look at you, Tiernan. Bloody hope so." "And you don't have to call me uncle," he says. "I'm not really anyway, right?" Oh dear, oh dear. Tiernan wakes up the next day, and after speaking to Mirai for a bit on the phone, and for some reason not begging Mirai to come and help her escape from this literal cabin in the woods filled with strange men, she goes and gets herself ready for the day. Or at least she tries, but she's interrupted by a naked woman who's leaving the bathroom. And of course, Tiernan is confused by this, as you would be. Jesus, I turn my head away. What the hell? Is she my uncle's wife? He didn't mention being married. But he didn't say he wasn't either. I cast another quick glance at her, seeing her smile and fold her arms over her chest. "Excuse me," she says. Taut, flat stomach, smooth skin, no ring on her finger. She's not his wife. And definitely not the boy's mother. I have no idea how old Caleb is, but Jake said Noah was his youngest, and she's not old enough to have a grown son. She looks only a few years older than me, actually. One of the boy's girlfriends, maybe? No, not one of the boy's girlfriends. She's with Jake. We don't find out till later in this book that women literally just come and go in this house because all of the men who live here seem to be so irresistible and stunning. They'll just come in the middle of the night, let themselves in, and just climb into bed with whoever. And I need to say this truly from the bottom of my heart, I don't think any man's is worth the absolute task of trekking up to their mountain house in the middle of the night. So from the get-go, this whole scenario is ridiculous. But you know what? People have needs. So whatever. Tiernan then goes to make coffee, and Jake shows up just to be weird and off-putting, I guess. "You have pretty hands," he points out. I look down at them wrapped around the mug. "Your dad did too," he adds, and I can hear the taunt. I pinch my eyebrows together. Was that a dig? "Well, he's dead now," I tell Jake. "You win." He lowers his chin, his stare locked on mine, and I see his jaw flex. I turn away and take another sip of my coffee. Regardless of whatever bad blood was between him and my father, the orphan is the last person he should be targeting with his insults. Manners are a thing everywhere. This guy's a prick. Tiernan, with peace and love, you need to call Mirai right now and leave this house. And does she leave? Well, yes, but it's to go ride a horse with Jake. And for some goddamn reason, even though she just told him that she knows how to ride a horse, he still feels the need to climb up and sit directly behind her on the horse, taking the reins for her. Tiernan even comments that she's practically sitting on his lap, and that it should feel weird, but she just feels protected, and no, absolutely not. No. Don't like this. I understand that you're in a very emotional state right now and also that you have daddy issues, but just no. Jake gives her a gun and gets her to shoot something, and it turns out that she's an amazing shot. And I really wish that this was foreshadowing that she's going to shoot one or all of these men, but it's not. Her uncle tells her that her chore will be to cook, since she doesn't know how to do things like look after the animals, to fertilize the crops, operate machinery, or other woodsy things. So cooking breakfast it is, he chirps. We all do our part, Tiernan, if you want to eat. I'll do my part and then some, but he could ask instead of give orders. I turn my head toward him again. You're not my father, you know. I came here out of my own free will and I can leave whenever I want. But instead of walking away or ignoring me, a hint of mischief hits his eyes and he smiles. Maybe, he taunts, or maybe I'll decide that you benefit from some time here and that you can't leave after all. My heart quickens. At least until I see you laugh, he adds. Or yell, or scream, or cry, or fight, or joke, and all in more than nods and one-word answers. This girl's parents just died. Like 2 days ago. Can you be normal for like 5 seconds and not demand that she show emotion in the way that you want her to? And yes, it is a big part of Tiernan's character that she struggles with emotions and she feels numb a lot of the time and has done for most of her life. But this man does not know that. He does not know her. So in his eyes, this is a traumatized teenager dealing with grief who has just come into his care. And he's demanding that she laughs or screams or something. This is psycho behavior. He cocks an eyebrow. Maybe I'll decide to honor your parents' wishes and keep you here until you're of age. I'll be of age in 10 weeks. We'll be snowed in 8, and he laughs, backing away from me. Yeah, so that's a thing where they live, is that during the winter they just get completely snowed in, and because they live so far away from civilization, they can't actually come and go. They have to just stay in this house. So that's a thing. Not at all terrifying. After an argument at breakfast where Tiernan refuses to eat for some reason, Tiernan ends up helping Jake with his motorbike repairs, which is what they all do for work. I have no idea why, but they're hammering wood and nails for this job. This really confused me because I thought motorbikes were made out of metal, but I'm sure it makes sense and I just don't know anything about motorbike repairs. But while this is all going on, Tiernan gets a splinter, which becomes far more dramatic than it needed to be. And if I had to read this vile scene, then so do you. A breeze blows through the open door of the shop. The chatter and laughter outside miles away as a wisp of my hair loose from the ponytail blows across my lips. His eyes drop to my mouth, and I stop breathing, everything getting warm. A trickle of sweat glides down his neck and the hair on my arms stand on end. I'm aware of his naked chest. We're too close. I swallow, my mouth sandy and dry. He finally blinks a few times and then he brings the palm of my hand up to his lips, the warmth of his mouth trying to suck the wood from my hand. My mouth falls open a little as his teeth gnaw and tease the splinter, and my skin is sucked and tickled. My fingertips graze the scruff on his cheek. I can do that. I don't need your help. But I can't manage to say it out loud. Ugh. Stay away from the local guys. You understand? Jake tells me. I look up at him. He continues, if you get a boyfriend, you won't be able to see him once we're snowed in anyway. Besides, they're not your type. How do you know? Because I'm telling you they're not your type, he shoots back. I will let you know when one is. What a Neanderthal, for Christ's sake. I feel like this is an insult to Neanderthals, but okay. Now this is where I have the unfortunate job of telling you that this book is not entirely in Tiernan's POV. No. We also get Jake's POV, which somehow makes everything so much worse. She's so different than I thought she'd be. Quiet, rigid, afraid. I have no idea how to handle her. I'm not smart enough for this. People like her who don't show emotion are finding other ways to release it. So what is it with her? Drugs, alcohol, cutting, sex? I stop. An image of Tiernan in the backseat of some car, sweat on her face, hair sticking to her cheek, eyes closed, breathing hard, pops into my head. I let out a breath and yanked my t-shirt off the chair, tucking it into my back pocket for later. She better not. I'm not supplying this town with new I would like for Jake never to speak again. Sadly for me though, he does continue to speak. The day before this, Tiernan had rearranged the fridge because she had fixed the broken motor in it, and he'd been really horrible about it, so he goes to her room to apologize. And for some reason, the teenager in his care reminds him of a woman he used to love. Her smell hits me and I pause. It smells like skin, wet from the rain. Deja vu suddenly washes over me and I inhale deeper. Skin with the faintest hint of fragrance, like that soft, hidden place behind a woman's ear that smells like her, but also a little of her perfume and shampoo and sweat. And suddenly I can taste it. It used to be my favorite place to kiss her. God, I'd forgotten. God, please save me from this nightmare. He goes downstairs to make coffee. Tiernan is there gluing together a plate that she broke, and he tries to speak to her, but she's not answering, as is usual for Tiernan. But this annoys him a little bit anyway. Tiernan, I say again, but she still doesn't respond. Jesus, it's like talking to my kids. Are all teenagers like this? Once again, please remember this section of him comparing her to his own children and acknowledging that she's a teenager. This will all be very important to come back to later when this starts to go to hell. She's more her mother though. The slender neck, the curve of the waist, the spine and shoulders that make her seem statuesque sometimes. On Amelia, it looked cold. On Tiernan, it makes you wonder how she'd bend and move in someone's arms. Someone's. My body warms and I hold her gaze for a moment. Wonderful! It's already gone to hell. Later on, Mirai calls Jake to say that maybe Tiernan should go live with her, someone who actually loves and cares about her, rather than a bunch of strange men who don't know her. And Mirai is absolutely right, but of course this doesn't happen and there is no escape from the inevitable horrors that will come from this book. At some point, Tiernan ends up going into town with Noah because she needs instant noodles, candles, and her contraceptive pill. They do ride down on a motorbike together, but I promise you this scene is far less vomit-inducing than the horse riding scene with her uncle Jake. And just to remind us all how much women love these men who live in the back arse of nowhere, Noah buys 8 boxes of condoms. And I'll admit, I did not know how many condoms came in a box, so I had to Google it. And according to Google, it's like 12. So this man apparently needs 96 condoms, even though he could just drive down to the store whenever he wants. Like, it's a long drive, but he can do it. I'm also wondering why he doesn't just buy a bigger box, because surely that would be more cost efficient, but who am I to tell somebody how to spend their money? Also, this scene does bother me for another reason, and I'm about to go on a tangent, so bear with me, but just humor me with this for a second, okay? So when they go out, Jake gives them $100. Now, I have numbers written here, so I'm going to read them from here. So if he buys 8 boxes of condoms, and it is in fact a pack of 12, that could be like $10 to $15. Let's say 10. That's $80. She buys some snacks that she likes, but she doesn't specify how much, so let's put it at $5. Multivitamins, that's maybe another $5. Candles, plural, so I assume they're not selling fancy candles at this shop, but there's no description of them, so let's just say $5, assuming they're like the cheapest candles. Sunscreen is maybe like $10. She says she buys 47-cent ramen, but she doesn't specify how much, so let's be cautious and say $2, but I'll assume that she actually bought more than this. Pens and paper is maybe like $10, and she says she even buys herself an extra set of earbuds, and I don't know what kind of earbuds they could possibly be selling at this shop, but if she got the cheapest ones possible, according to Walmart's website anyway, that's like $9. So being cautious about this, I've calculated Tiernan stuff at like $46, which I think I miscalculated because the 6 doesn't sound right to me, but let's just say 45. And if I'm correct, then Noah spent $80. So if all of that is right, then they don't actually have enough money to buy all the things that they just said they're going to buy. Unless he bought 8 3-packs of condoms, which apparently that's also a thing. So that would bring it up to about $95, but that's still me being really cautious with the cost of things that Tiernan bought. This isn't relevant at all, but I was just hyperfixating on this, so we're just going to move on, but thank you for going on that journey with me. I appreciate your patience. During this scene, we are introduced to Cece, a character who is apparently not very happy about Tiernan's sudden arrival. Cece Diggins, he tells me, taking out the cash his father put on the table. Gets real insecure when something prettier comes into town. Meaning me? She won't be happy about you living with us, no ads. Why? You'll find out. He laughs and takes the grocery bags. I'm gonna have too much fun watching this play out. On the way back to the cabin of horrors, Noah starts talking to Tiernan about her parents. Apparently he knew a little bit about them from the internet, and he starts talking about how they resented her for taking them away from each other, and how bad that must have made her feel. Tiernan is obviously freaked out about this and isn't ready to face her emotions yet, which is just another stark reminder about what this book could have been. Because she's so put off by this whole conversation, at around 1 a.m, Tiernan decides to just leave and walk back to town, which is going to take her like 2 days. But at this point, I kind of support her. I do think that maybe she should bring like a rifle or something because there's like bears or something. But I support her leaving this house and never coming back. Noah and Jake are asleep in their beds when she's trying to leave, but as this is happening, somebody kicks in the door. A man steps over the threshold of the shop, wearing jeans, blood running down his bare chest from the dead animal carcass hanging around his neck. I watch, my mouth suddenly dry and my heart lodged in my throat as he walks over to the long wooden table and slings the dead deer, foot-long antlers and all, onto the table and turns around to kick the shop door closed again. Just guess whose character introduction this is. That's right. It's Caleb. Can you tell that I'm really happy about this? If the warnings of him so far were not enough to make Tiernan run away from this house, then this introduction should have been. But alas, she does not run off to Costa Rica to live with the spiders, or whatever it was that she was talking about earlier. Once Tiernan realizes that this is actually one of Jake's sons, and not just some rando who's kicked in the door and is going to kill them all, Tiernan tries to talk to him, but he's not responding because, as we're going to learn, Caleb doesn't speak. Ever. And he hasn't spoken since he was 4 years old. At this point, he glances at her stomach, and Tiernan remembers that her t-shirt is ripped and her underboob is showing. She is clearly and understandably uncomfortable with this man looking at her that way, so she tries to walk away. As soon as I move, he moves, walking right for me. He approaches, droplets of water hanging from his skin, and I dart towards the stairs, but he shoots out his hand, grabs me, and shoves me into the wall instead. What? I gasp, fear curdling in my stomach. Reaching up, he takes the ribbon I'm wearing and runs it through his fingers before bringing a lock of my hair to his nose and smelling it. Then he dips to the side, running his nose over my ear, up my hairline and across my forehead, inhaling me, smelling me. This is serial killer behavior. But he reaches between us with one hand, his forehead resting on mine with fire in his eyes, and he starts ripping open his belt and undoing his jeans. Whoa, what? My mouth falls open. Wait, stop. I plant my hands on his chest. You can't. What are you? I'm going to spare you the rest of this scene because it's literally essay. There is no other way to spin this than it is SA. They don't actually get to the part of doing anything that would involve not having underwear on, although her underwear does get removed. But he is doing stuff and she is repeatedly telling him to stop and trying to push him away, all while he is just not listening. He eventually does back off when Noah comes into the room and is like, whoa, dude, that's not a townie, that's our cousin. As if that makes the whole situation. Like, if this had been a townie, was it okay? No matter who Caleb thinks this girl is, she is repeatedly telling him to stop, and he's not stopping. This man is a psycho criminal, and I absolutely hate every single mention of him in this book, including the forced redemption arc that you're going to see much later on. Once Noah does explain who Tiernan actually is, like Caleb is just a bold dog and not a sex offender, they just laugh this whole thing off. Well, Noah laughs this whole thing off like it's a funny sitcom moment. Just insane. And then Noah releases him, laughing under his breath. This isn't funny, I snap. And then I glare at Caleb, now able to finally find my goddamn voice. What the hell is the matter with you? Just cut him some slack, Noah says. He's always starving when he comes back from being in the woods this long. Everyone in this book is mentally deranged. Considering what I knew was going to happen with the uncle very soon in this book, and from the horrific descriptions of Caleb, before this, I had hope that Noah was going to be somewhat normal. But in one fell swoop, my hopes are dashed and it is replaced with a burning hatred for this entire book, every character in it, and everybody who rated this book 5 stars. And then the chapter ends with this. For several minutes, I'm lost in thought about where that would have gone if Noah hadn't come in, if I hadn't forced myself to push his brother away, because I almost didn't want to. But oh ho ho, this is a revised version of this chapter. And how do I know this? Because on my second read of this book, I was listening to the audiobook version to speed up the process a bit. And in the audiobook, which is the original version, the chapter actually ends with this. I'm lost in thought about where that would have gone if Noah hadn't come in. If I hadn't forced myself to push Caleb away. And how much of it might not have been Caleb's fault.
I think I am good at screaming. I can scream for you.
Let me hear you.
What in the name of God? So she's telling him to stop. And the excuse is, oh no, it's okay, he just thought you were someone from town. And Tiernan decides that this is somehow not Caleb's fault. Penelope Douglas, I officially hate you too. The next morning, Tiernan reflects on this whole situation, but her whole reflection is about whether Caleb actually liked her or wanted her, or whether he was just in the mood. Her entire thought process and her entire concern is how much or how little he liked her. I just feel the need to remind you that this is a conscious choice by the author. That's all. She also suddenly remembers that Caleb was covered in animal blood. Ew. So she goes to wash herself. Unfortunately for everybody involved, me included, the door is unlocked, but Jake is in there in the bathroom with just a towel on. That same woman from the other day is there as well, but she just leaves. Which, like, fair, I would leave too. Jake is shaving his beard and Tiernan goes in to brush her teeth, and he starts asking her whether she had a boyfriend back in LA. Tiernan doesn't answer because, of course, she doesn't, and then the conversation gets weird. Have you had any men? He asks more bluntly when I don't respond. Whatsoever? I slow my strokes, my breathing turning shallow. Is he asking if I'd had sex? I know you haven't forgotten. I know you're not stupid. But I still feel the need to remind you that this is a man in his 40s who is the legal guardian of this 17-year-old girl. Who, by the way, that he's only known for a few days. You're still a girl, he says, guessing the answer without me telling him. And you still need some raising. There is so much wrong with this sentence. She proceeds to pretend to shave her face with a toothbrush because she's joking that he has no idea how to raise girls. And this all could have been very innocent, but still, we are not saved. He catches my eye and smiles before leading me through the final strokes. But his arm brushing mine makes my heart beat harder, and the smell of his clean body fills the room. But when he puts the towel away, he looks down at me. And my hidden smile sinks to the bottom of my stomach, and so does his. He's close. His eyes hold mine and we stand there, heat filling the room, so hot I swallow, seeing his Adam's apple rise and then fall too. Looks like I failed, he said barely above a whisper. There's no hiding what you are. A girl. He almost sounds remorseful at that fact, but I barely hear him, standing there and watching him, and the words flow out of my mouth before I can stop them. I may never be a man, I tell him, but I won't always be a girl either. I pause long enough to see him falter and his face fall, and I can't help the small smile that peeks out as I turn and leave the bathroom. Surely I can take on more responsibilities when I'm a woman. I'm very happy that this doesn't go anywhere, and they both leave the bathroom, to which I hope they never return. Tiernan goes downstairs to make pancakes, and Caleb the criminal is there and just staring at her. She tries talking to him again, but he moves on to just outright ignoring her. Like, the audacity of it all. Being petty, which I fully support, Tiernan decides to not give him any of the pancakes that she made. I wish she would have punched him too. But alas. So what does this very normal man do but take the plate, allot a few pancakes to Jake, some to Noah, and take the rest of the full plate for himself, leaving none for Tiernan, who just made them. As if she's done something wrong to annoy him. This man just SA'd her, and now he's acting like a complete arse for no reason. And I absolutely hate what's going to happen with this character in the rest of this book. I just can't describe to you how much it annoys me, but we'll get there. Don't worry. Oh, and later on, she sees Caleb getting head from Cece behind some hay. Actually, he's doing most of the movement, but thankfully the girl is actually into it this time. He realizes Tiernan sees him, so he just stares at her, and she's just staring back all while this is going on. And Tiernan's actually enjoying this, like enjoying watching, and gets quite into it, but she later realizes that this is a weird thing to be doing, so she just runs away. And I'll bet he enjoys himself too, reaping all the benefits of playing the mysterious, tortured soul who doesn't speak, but it's just so alluring and sweet because women want to save him. I don't care what happened to him when he was 4. Tiernan, I am on my hands and knees, begging you to keep up this energy. Yes, please do not care about this vile man and the reasons that he is the way he is. Later on, everybody leaves the house, so Tiernan decides to go for a walk into the mountains. And while she's doing that, she finds a little pool of water and she decides to go have a swim, which honestly sounds really lovely, actually. To ruin her peace, though, a motorbike revs nearby and she is greeted by Terence, one of the biker bros from town who is maybe sort of Noah's friend. Terence walks into the water and just starts talking to her, and honestly, reading this scene, I was so tense because for one, we had seen the character introduction with Caleb and I did not know where this was going to go. And secondly, if I was alone in the woods and some strange guy just appeared, I would be freaking out, and I think so would most people. It's not actually that bad though, so don't worry. I pause, treading water. I thought you all went to ride bikes. He smiles. They went to ride. I snuck off. You followed me? He must have overheard me saying I wanted to go for a hike when we were all back at the house, and guess I'd wind up here? I start swimming for the shore. If you go, he says, I don't know if I'll be able to get you alone again. I turn my head looking at him. They're very protective of their property. Can anyone in this book be normal for like 5 seconds? What do you want? I ask him, changing the subject. Your Chapel Peak's shiny new toy, he tells me. Just checking you out. I raise my eyebrows. Yeah, that sounded cheesier than I thought it would, he mumbles. Sorry. Why? I replied. Toys are meant to be played with. His mouth drops open and we stare at each other as the loaded words hang between us. And then, as if on cue, we both start laughing at the same time. That had extra cheese, he teases. Listen, okay, hear me out for a second. He may be a bit weird, and he did follow her there, but he's at least respecting her boundaries. And she does genuinely seem to be into it, so like, get it, girl? Maybe this book has desensitized me though. I'm not sure. They go into town every Friday night, Terence tells me, inching closer, to have some fun. I smile to myself. They don't need to go to town for that. Town comes to them. They're always getting the prettiest ones too, he goes on. Until now. The prettiest one, they'll keep home and to themselves, won't they? I tense. He comes in closer, but I don't back away. What if I were to come up here Friday night when you're alone? He says low. Would you let me in the house? His body is so close, and I fist my hands in the water because there's an ache low in my belly that won't go away. And maybe I should act. Maybe I should do something I would never, because I want to feel, and because the ache has been there since my first morning here and the horseback ride. Would you want to have some fun of your own? Terence taunts. I swallow, letting my imagination wander for a split second. We could do it now, I guess. Right here, on the beach. Probably for hours before anyone came to find me. Is this asking for consent? In my good Christian credence? Like, yeah, honestly, go get it, girl. But please don't reference the cursed horseback ride with your uncle, for the love of God. Terence goes to kiss her, but all of a sudden Caleb and Noah appear like some kind of cock-block department of the Avengers. Noah shouts at Tiernan to get out of the pool, and Caleb pulls a literal gun on Terence. But it's okay, because Terence has a gun too. Yay! You're not going to be able to keep her to yourself, he tells Caleb and Noah. She's the prettiest thing we've all seen in a while, and I'm just trying to get in there before all the dogs start barking at your front door for a piece of that sweet little snatch. Forget everything I said about Terence. I feel like this book gaslit me into accepting him for a minute just because he was the lesser of all the evils. Anyway, they leave and nobody shoots anyone. Fantastic. Caleb does get a bit bloodied up in the face though, which does make me feel just a little bit better about all of this.
Booty rocking cowgirl coming to my barn.
At home, an argument breaks out between pretty much all of them because of what happened with Terence, but also because Tiernan's refusing to make dinner, and I cannot blame her. I've been here for 3 days, and you've intimidated me, threatened me, and taunted me. You've acted like bullies, I tell them. Isn't this what you wanted? For me to yell? Fight? Isn't that what you said? I said you'd benefit from some time here, and I was right, Jake fires back. You've got no idea how to work inside of a unit, be part of a team, a family. He stalks forward, and I back into the living room as he closes the distance between us. Let me educate you, girl, he growls. You're the kid, I'm the adult. You do as you're told, and there's no problem. That system works for us. He towers over me. Just do as you're told. I just want to point out here that Jake is fully aware that he's the adult and she's the kid. Just keep that in mind for later. Jake starts to tell her that she's rude and she's spoiled and that she doesn't even bother to ask them anything about their lives. He calls her a brat and Tiernan's like, no, I'm not a brat, I'm just... But she can't figure out how to answer that. I shake my head, more to myself than him, murmuring, I'm just not used to... To what? He bites out. Rules? A spending limit? Small closet space? A tear falls, and it takes everything to keep the sob bottled up. Chores of any kind, he continues. What is so god-awful different in this house compared to yours? What are you so not used to? People, I blurt out. I don't know when I figured it out, but it just comes out. He's right, I have no idea how to be with people. Tears fall, spilling down my face as I stare at the floor. I'm not used to people, I whisper. They don't talk to me at home. He doesn't speak, and I can't hear the boys making any movements either, the silence making the room feel small. I raise my eyes, no longer caring that he can see my red eyes and wet face. No one talks to me. And before he can say anything, I run up the stairs, desperate to get in my room and away from their eyes. I lock the door and fall back on the bed, covering my eyes with my arms to stop the tears. God, why did I do that? What a basket case. He's gonna send me home now because I'm emotional and too much work. Aw, look at the poor little rich girl. Her mommy and daddy let her have anything she wanted, but they didn't hold her hand or kiss her or hug her every day. Poor baby. Now they'll just see me as even less than they did before. Fragile, easy to break. A problem to tiptoe around. How many kids would have happily lived with my parents if it meant they were being fed and clothed every day? I have everything. And I just broke in front of them over nothing. Everyone should be as lucky as I am. I genuinely think that this is a good scene. It's real and it's raw and it gives us a real insight into Tiernan and her character and how her upbringing affected her. Yeah, she is rude, but it's because she was so neglected as a child that she doesn't know how to have a proper conversation or take an interest in somebody else. She never had a chance to learn those social skills. And she isn't completely self-aware because that would be unrealistic. She knows that she's been privileged in a lot of aspects of her life and she's taken on people's opinions that because of that, she shouldn't get to complain about the other aspects of her life. She's hurt and confused and conflicted, and again, it just shows you how good this book could have been. It could have even still have been a spicy romance novel, but the problem is that everyone in this book is a degenerate, so that potential just flies out the window. The next morning, Tiernan goes downstairs to make coffee, and Jake appears. I'm gonna go home, I say quietly. You are home. He sets a mug in front of me. My chin trembles a little. I turn my head away, not wanting him to see me cry again. But then I feel his fingers brush my hair behind my ear, and the gesture makes my eyes fall closed. It feels so good I want to cry again. Without waiting another second, he pulls me into him, wrapping his arms around me, and he holds my head to his chest. It's just a normal, lovely, family bonding moment. I so badly want Jake to just be a normal family character and to watch that relationship grow. Is that too much to ask? My eyes drop to his lips, and for a moment, I'm with him. Breathing with him, my blood coursing hot under my skin as I take in his tanned face, his smooth mouth and his rugged scruff along his jaw. I have a sudden urge to wrap my arms around him and hide in his neck, but he runs his thumb over my jaw. The heat under my skin spreads lower, and the small smile he had on his lips fades as he stares down at me. Finally, he blinks, breaking the spell as he drops his hand. Get dressed, okay? He asks. Pants and a long-sleeve shirt. You're with me this morning. Apparently it was too much to ask. While they're working together outside, Tiernan tries to ask him some questions about his life. A little bit of character development on her side, if you will. We find out that Noah and Caleb's mother is in jail, but we don't know what for. And apparently Jake never really loved her. He was in love with somebody else called Flora, who was an immigrant who worked for his family. Because if you don't remember, his family are like old money rich. This relationship threatened the family's status somehow. I don't really get it, but whatever. So they plotted to break them up. Your mother was a rising star, and your parents had just started dating, he explains. She took Flora out and got her drunk, and when Flora woke up, she was in bed with another man. He finally looked over at me, pausing in his work. Another man who wasn't me. That would be the definition of another man, Jake. Sorry, this is serious. Let's be serious. My father, I say, putting the pieces together. Jake nods. Your grandfather knew I wasn't going to let her go, so your parents helped get rid of her. I blink long and hard. I can't believe I defended them to my uncle. To him. No wonder he hates them. Flora felt really guilty about this and just assumed their relationship was over, which his family then confirmed, saying, yep, the relationship is over. Here, have $50,000 and just leave and don't come back. Later, Flora took her own life. This family is just horrific, like the worst kind of people. So, understandably, Jake just moved into the woods. This, though, doesn't explain any of the awful decisions that this man is going to make later in the book. In chapter 9, we get Noah's POV, and he's getting busy, which is a phrase I've never said in my life up until now, so I'm so sorry. But he's getting busy with some girl who turns out to be his ex-girlfriend's 18-year-old sister. I manage half an eye roll, but I give her a bite for good measure. She does have nicer tits than Rory, but at least Rory knew what foreplay was. This chick trying to jump on my at 6 in the morning and expecting it to be immediately standing at attention is just downright offensive. Do men even know what foreplay is in real life? I highlighted this next part, not really thinking about the fact that that would mean that I have to read this next line on YouTube. Oh dear. Gonna regret this one, aren't I? Right. Go hard, she pants. I'm daddy's little
Hell, girl.
Ew, what the fuck? I close my eyes, my stomach rolling. You won't hurt me, Noah, she says. Shut the f up. I dare you to try. That's it. I grit my teeth and circle her waist, flipping us both around and pinning her on her back. I cover her mouth with my hand as I push her knees wide, spreading her open. Why did I highlight all of this bit? It was important that I highlight this whole bit. Hold on, we're getting there. I f her hard and fast as my bed rocks. The floorboards creak and I stare out the window behind my headboard. I just want this to be over. I clench my jaw, the feel of her sweat making me feel like the walls are closing in. I want it off me. This is supposed to be a spicy romance novel, so would it have killed Penelope to write a scene where everybody involved is actually into what they're doing? Because so far we have the first scene where Caleb essays Tiernan, but we're told that that's not what it is. The second one where Caleb isn't even paying attention to Cece because he's busy looking at Tiernan. Then we have the third almost scene between Terence and Tiernan, and both of them do seem to be into it, but it gets stopped preemptively. And then later on, Terence turns out to be a dirtbag anyway, who has a board with his friends where they rate the girls they've been with, so just weird. And then we have this scene with Noah. How is any of this sexy? I don't get it. If I can't come even once, that's unacceptable. I'm good in bed, goddammit. Women leave my room happy. Not like the Boulevard of Broken Dreams, that's my father's bed, when they realise he only wants and not a relationship, or Skid Row upstairs in Caleb's room where women are lucky to get out alive. So many alarm bells are going off in my head that it's giving me a migraine. No joke, at this point in the book I genuinely did have a migraine and I had to stop for a few hours and go sit in a dark room and take a painkiller because it was just too much. I will admit it was also nearing a full moon, so that may have been why my head hurt, but I'm going to blame the book. Tiernan is headed to the bathroom to have a shower, but then Noah arrives who also wants to use the shower. They fight over the door handle, but they both end up in the bathroom and this turns into a tickle fight. I chuckle. It's like having a little sister. Maybe the day won't wind up so badly after all. In a shocking turn of events, this is actually fine and kind of cute. The girl from earlier comes over, but Noah doesn't want to talk to her, so he locks the door with him and Tiernan inside, and the two of them end up in the bath, fully clothed and everything, but somehow he thinks this is going to make the girl go away. They end up chatting and Noah gets Tiernan to open up about herself a little bit. She reveals that she loves the beach, but also that she tried to take her life in the ocean several years ago. And this may actually be the first time that she's talked about this. We also learn a bit about Noah and how he feels stuck in life and quite lonely, and he's genuinely enjoying just sitting and talking to Tiernan. He really enjoys her company. And then Tiernan tells him to shower quickly so she can shower, but she stays in the shower while he gets undressed and washes himself. Then when he gets out, he sees that she's taken off her clothes and put them on the floor and that she's in the shower. Without thinking, I twist the lock again and look over at her through the curtain. I can almost see her underwear sticking to her body. Remember the toned calves and thighs. What if she likes me? What if it's just once? A secret, something my father never has to know. Maybe not today, but maybe tomorrow, or next week, in here, in the shower, where no one has to see. But I shake my head and unlock the door, leaving quickly. Jesus Christ, that's not what she needs. And another notch on my belt is not what I need. I need my head examined. The poor kid just lost her parents. This is no longer fine or kind of cute. Later on, they all head to the lake, and Jake is teaching Tiernan how to fish. If you don't like fishing, he says behind me, his voice low and husky, there's a pretty cool cave behind the waterfall. It doesn't go that deep, but it's peaceful. We cast the line again, trying to reach just beyond the pool. Sounds like a good place for teenagers to do bad things, I joke. As a matter of fact, he chuckles. Oh, great. I can only imagine what the boys get up to back there, growing up here as they have. If a guy takes you there, he tells me, now you'll know what he's after. Then maybe you should take me. Ah! No! No. Anyway, Tiernan kind of reels that back, going, no, that's not what I meant. I just meant, like, if you take me, then I'll be safe, and I can just see the cave. Thankfully, they move on from this very quickly and go back to fishing. I say thankfully, but maybe it's not thankfully. Let's just read this bit. Unable to stop myself, I lean back a little, meeting his chest with my back as he puts his hand over mine on the handle. Am I crowding you? No, I shake my head. Here I am, saying I don't need help, but please don't take your hand off. This is a man in his 40s and his 17-year-old stepniece who was put in his care. In case we have forgotten. We haven't had a woman living in the house since their mother, he tells me. I don't have a great track record with taking care of women. I thought I was protecting Caleb and Noah, keeping them secluded up here, he says, watching his line. I think I just gave up, though. I didn't want to fail again. I gaze at his eyes, how young they still are, how they betray all the things he still wants. I didn't even have a desire to try, he murmurs. Then he looks down at me. Everything else stops. But now we have you, he tells me. Heat pools low in my belly, and I feel the slickness between my as I throb, embarrassment rising to my cheeks. This is a man in his 40s and his 17-year-old stepniece who was put in his care. Like, at this moment, the woman is too stunned to speak. And I don't think I need to explain all the reasons that this is so terrible, because it's so clearly terrible. Anyway, Tiernan is still turned on by all of this, so she just kind of runs away to the cave. No one's there, so she decides to fix her issue herself, which I think is a fantastic idea. In fact, a much better idea than shagging these 3 weird men that she's now stuck with. Although she does this while thinking about Jake, but okay. She's then rudely interrupted by Cece just before she can finish, but she noticed that Cece is bleeding, and then Caleb walks out behind her, so she just assumes that Caleb hit her, which is a reasonable thing to think, considering what we know about Caleb. I would assume the same. Much later on, Cece comes into play again, because there's a pop-up motocross race, which Noah is really into motocross, as are all the biker bros like Terrence and his friends in town. Noah wins because he's fantastic, and then there's a whole kind of get-together, slight party thing afterwards with a bonfire, dancing, music, stuff like that. Cece drags Tiernan off to go dance with her, and I guess they're dancing really provocatively. Because Cece's like, I know you're into him too, I know you're just jealous, and that's why you followed us into the cave. But Tiernan's like, no, actually, I went in there to do what I did. She just tells her. I honestly think that Tiernan should just go off with Cece for the night so she can feel a bit better, and then forget about all these degenerate men. It would be a happy ending. I can't stop myself. And in a few weeks, I tell her, I won't even know what's happening online anyway, because I'll be locked away on the peak for months and months. I pause, and then continue for added effect. And months. With him, I don't say out loud, but the words hang in the air. I want it to sound like a threat, even if it's an empty one. She doesn't need to know Caleb scares me or treats me worse than the animals he hunts. At least they're of value to him. You said it yourself, Tiernan, so for the good of your own sanity, please do not pursue this man. While all this is going on, I guess Tiernan and Cece are dancing far too provocatively for the good town of wherever the hell this is. The book said, I just forgot. So Jake comes over all alpha male aggression and says, hey, boys are looking at you, we're going home. To make this worse, on the car ride home, Jake threatens to spank her if she keeps up this behavior, which I need to remind you, I'm pretty sure they've known each other for about 4 days at this point. You can't stop me from being with someone or having sex if I want to, I inform him. It's called a double standard, Jake. You guys get to be with women. Why can't I enjoy someone's company? We can be with women because no one has laid claim to us. No one has laid claim to me. You're a young woman in my house, he fires back. We claim you until you're old enough. On my birthday? He cocks a dark eyebrow at me, but he doesn't reply as he focuses back on the road. Will I be old enough when I'm 18 in a matter of weeks? Will he back off then? Of course not. I'm old enough when he says, because I'm too stupid to keep myself out of trouble. Your logic is flawed, you know, I tell him, staring through the mirror. If a woman claims you, then she'll do for you what other women do. But if you all claim me, you're not doing for me what other men would do. Noah spurts beer from his mouth, choking and dripping alcohol everywhere as he looks wide-eyed over at his father and coughs into his hand. I bite back a smile. You tell him, Tiernan, just please keep up this energy. All the guys brought girls home in the car, and I still argue that Tiernan should have been allowed to bring Cece. Tiernan goes to bed, but she wakes up from a bad dream since she gets reoccurring night terrors and has started to get them since her parents' death, and she can't get back to sleep because of the noise of Noah and some girl in his room. She goes downstairs to get some water, but who is there but Uncle Jake? And Tiernan, by the way, is in her underwear and a vest, and she just starts, making eggs. It's 1 a.m. She puts some eggs on a plate for Jake, but then he comes up behind her and starts asking why she ran away from him when they were fishing. I don't think this is a good idea after all, he says behind me. We're not good influences on a girl. I'm not a girl. Yes, you are. Have you ever had a man in your bed? He asks in a ragged voice. My heart skips a beat. Slowly, I shake my head. He leans down close to my ear. Have you ever been kissed? I nod. On places other than your mouth? Heat pools between my legs. No, Uncle Jake. You're gonna call him Uncle Jake now? Right now? Is deranged. In what I hope is a moment of actual self-awareness, Jake tells her that this is wrong and she should probably just leave the peak and go somewhere else, LA preferably. The problem, however, is that Tiernan has been without love or affection for her entire life, and she's just now finding people who seem to care for her, or at the very least take an interest in her. She even references it herself at this very moment in her inner monologue, thinking to herself how no one ever wanted her around, but Jake had said that she was home and she'd believed him. So it's so plainly obvious that this is just a girl with some really deep-seated issues. She just wants to feel loved or wanted because she never had that during her childhood. And when people need to feel loved this badly, they may do things like give themselves over to people really easily just to fill that void, even if the person they're giving themselves to is inappropriate or undeserving. Like, for example, a step-uncle who's in his 40s. Still, they keep flirting though, if you want to call it that, and do you feel this? He growls over my lips as he pushes me into the sink. The thick, hard ridge of his nudges my ass and I groan. This is what you're doing to me, Tiernan. It's not right. Instead of pile driving the hot and I came home with, I'm sitting down here trying to talk myself out of going into your room and giving the teenage piece of ass living in my house a really long kiss goodnight. You're a criminal? Oh my god. I want to mention, by the way, that at this point of reading this, I was sprawled across the desk, my head in my hands just grunting and groaning, because this book was sending me into a crisis. My poor partner had to listen to me talking about this scene and ranting about it until I could calm down enough to continue reading. But then it only continued to get worse, because then they start making out and dry humping and talking. He even has his hand on her breast and down there, but I guess the author decided since there's no penetration here, it doesn't actually count as minor, which is just awful. And once again, in case I haven't hammered it in enough, Tiernan is 17. 17. 40-year-old man, 17-year-old in his care. 17-year-old's parents just died a few days ago. Are we all on the same page here? He also says to her, you're just broken and trying to feel something. No shit, Jake. Could you please remember this in a few weeks' time too? Because that would be great. Tiernan also finally cries about her parents, and This scene is it's just too much. I was afraid Guys for You right now would just you be acting out. I didn't want you to do something you'd regret. I stare up into his green eyes. So if this was just me acting out, what was it for you? I swallow. I can still feel his hands on me. And maybe I was scared too, he tells me, giving me a cocky little smile. Everyone will want you, and it's our time with you. A flutter hits my belly. I like it when he says stuff like that. I hate it when he says stuff like that. You okay with that? He asks. I nod. Having a family is nice. He pulls me down off the counter and gives me a swat on the ass. Now take your food and go back to bed. Everyone wants you. It's nice to have a family. He swats my ass. Am I going insane or is this completely deranged? A few days later, all seems to be forgotten, and everybody is all buddy-buddy, except for Caleb, the serial killer. At some point, Jake is trying to teach Tiernan about self-defense, which, like, good job, that's actually a very useful thing for her to learn, especially living with the three of you. And this then devolves into a tickle fight, and we all saw how that went last time. My body starts to warm, and my smile falls as I see him under me, aware of every ridge of his muscle, every bulge of his body. I turn my head looking at him, and I see the embarrassment in his eyes, because he knows I feel it. I made him. My skin tingles under his fingers as he caresses my hips with just the barest touch. My eyelids flutter, his eyebrows pinch together. What is this? He murmurs, and I feel his fingers slip under the string of my. He follows the fabric over my hip where it sticks out of my jeans all the way back to where there's almost nothing. He knows what kind of I'm wearing, and his breathing turns laboured. For God's sake. Also, apparently she just bought these underwear today and just put them on, and I really feel the need to give a PSA here that the clothes that you buy from the shop are not clean. Actually, they're filthy. And look, you can forgive a top or a jumper or a pair of socks or something, right? Like, it's not clean, but it's not the end of the world. But underwear, you need to wash that. I'm so serious. Please. Anyway, after this, Tiernan gets a call from Mirai, who she's been ignoring, even though she's the only person who actually cares about Tiernan without wanting to get in her pants. The funeral, it turns out, is in 2 days, and Tiernan has to go to that, but she doesn't know when she's going to come back. And it's just this whole forced drama of like, ooh, maybe she's not going to go back, even though we know she goes back. She does go to the funeral, and it's genuinely a really sad scene. Mirai is, of course, an angel, as usual. We love her. And throughout the whole thing, Tiernan learns a lot about herself. She thinks about her parents and realizes that because of how they treated her, she hates them. It's a big moment for her, but unfortunately, all this moment really is her way of learning that where she really wants to be is in Colorado, in the mountains, with a bunch of creepy men. So Tiernan goes back, and Noah wants to celebrate that she didn't disappear, so they all take shots. Why not?
They're barely legal, and he's got a subscription to Barely Legal.
Now we get to Tiernan's 18th birthday. A wondrous moment for her that I'm sure won't be filled with debauchery. In the morning, she goes to town with Noah to pick up a few bits because they've been warned that winter is coming, so they're going to be snowed in and they need to stock up. Noah gives her a gift of a shirt and a hat, which is actually sweet and not at all weird, thank God. At this point in this book, I was so desperate for normality, so I was just clinging on to this scene like, yes, thank you. We also find out more about Noah here, like the fact that his mother calls him in secret and he's the only one in the family that she communicates with, but she only really does it because she wants commissary money, and he sends it to her because he also really wants to feel wanted and needed. For a moment, you'd almost feel bad for him and forget that he laughed off SA a few chapters ago. Later at home, Tiernan gets all dressed up for her birthday dinner and she's all excited and giddy, and it's really sweet, and I'm just happy for her. She needs more moments like this. And also therapy. Jake also gives her a birthday gift, and I want you to guess in the comments right now what you think this gift is. I'm going to tell you what it is. Jake gives her a pink hunting bow and arrows, which is kind of iconic, actually. Probably the only thing that Jake does in this book that I approve of. Besides maybe teaching her self-defense, but that turned weird. And in a shocking turn of events, Caleb the Creep also gets her a birthday gift. It's a belt. Dark and tanned with carvings in the leather and an antique-looking silver buckle. I study the etchings. There are trees, a waterfall, the peak, the view from my bedroom window, actually. Something that looks like a braid of hair, a horse, and a dream catcher. I swallow. Why would he put a dream catcher on there? But it's beautiful. He made this himself? Then I notice something else and I chuckle. The notches go all the way to the buckle, I point out. I'm flattered, but my waist isn't that small. Noah leans in, whispering, "But your wrists are. You two are degenerates and I hate you both with a burning passion, especially Caleb." They have her birthday dinner and then afterwards they go to a bar and Tiernan gets swept up in some bachelorette party. And she starts to finally let go a little bit, like she's just dancing and not really feeling awkward like she normally would around people and genuinely enjoying herself. It might be because of the beer, but it also might not be, so, you know. And then someone comes to finally ruin it because this girl cannot have a moment of joy. Lifting up my arms, I bang my head to the lyrics, unashamed of going crazy, because so is everyone else, and I relax. Finally, I relax, until I open my eyes. Jake stands paused in the middle of raising his beer to his mouth, watching me at the bar. His lips are parted slightly, and he looks like he isn't breathing. My heart drops into my stomach, and I slow for a moment, taking a mental inventory to make sure he's not mad. I'm not dancing with a local boy. I'm not naked. I came here with 3 male relatives, so I'm not unarmed or unprotected. He's not angry, I don't think. He's just watching me. And not just Jake. Noah is staring at her too, because of course he is. "What if I told you," Cece continues, tracing the spaghetti strap of my dress, "that he can't wait to make you bleed too, and he's just biding his time until you have no means of escaping him." My mouth goes dry and my skin crawls. Caleb isn't like that. Firstly, girly, Caleb is absolutely like that. The first time he met you, he SA'd you, so you have no reason to think otherwise. Secondly, I take everything that I said about Cece back because she's weird too. Apparently the women aren't even safe in this book. Then Cece tries to tell Tiernan that all the guys want are her money and her looks, which I would argue that they actually don't care about money, and in fact, Jake detests money, having grown up rich and seeing the damage it does. Her looks, on the other hand, well, yes. Actually, she's right. Maybe you should listen to Cece. Although I'm not sure. I have a blind spot when it comes to women. Maybe this is how straight people feel when reading this book. Caleb comes to save her from all of this before starting a fight with Terrence, who was also there, by the way. All hell breaks loose, everyone is fighting, and the bartender whips out a baseball bat. Tiernan ends up with Jake and Noah, and they try to get in the truck to get the hell out of Dodge. Caleb pushes his way into the driver's seat, and like a normal, well-adjusted person, he drives over all the biker bros' bikes. That is a fantastic way to lose all your business, considering, remember, their business is repairing motorcycles. They're not going to go to you after this. There are only so many people in this town who need your repair work. And for full dramatic effect, winter is finally here. Snow is falling and the roads are getting slippery. Noah's laughter dies down, and he rises, coming to stand next to me. The snow won't stop, he tells me. I meet his eyes as he pats my arm. Until April, he finishes. When they do get home later that night, they all just kind of seem over it. Like, for some reason, they don't seem to think it's a problem that come April, Caleb might go to jail and that they're all stuck in the mountains together for the next few months. So feeling all chill and nonchalant, Noah, Caleb, and Tiernan decide to watch a movie together. But Tiernan isn't really into the movie, she's not enjoying it, it's a bit boring, so they all just start chatting about how there's going to be no one around during winter. Tiernan suggests that there must be other mountain men around that they could get with to fulfill their needs, which honestly not really a bad idea. If there was, then why not? Winter is a long time, but Noah and Caleb don't seem to agree with this. Guess what this turns into though? A tickle fight. Of course. But then, all of a sudden, he grabs me by the collar and pulls me onto his lap. Noah, by the way. He wraps his arm around me, whispering in my ear. "You want to see how we really cope with the seclusion?" My smile falls, my laughter gone, and I watch as he scrolls the TV's files and finally clicks on one. It's planted firmly in his lap, my back against his chest, and I'm aware of his body underneath mine, through the thin fabric we wear. Yeah, I'm sure you can guess they put on a film, which is not shocking information that they'd watch porn in general, especially not when they can't be with anyone for months. It just seems quite normal, to be honest. The scenario, not normal, but the fact that they're watching it, normal. What is slightly worrisome though is the fact that the subjects of this film are teenagers. What do you mean by teenagers? Because it does use the word teenagers. Because I, or anyone that I know, would say that a teenager is somebody 17 or under. which would be illegal. I'm assuming and also hoping that this is a cultural difference and that Americans would call teenagers people who are 18 or 19 as well, so please let me know. Regardless though, the author still chose to write it this way. Why did the author choose to write the word teenagers and not young adults to talk about this? And it also serves as a reminder that Tiernan just turned 18. Today. We get a full play-by-play of the film in a lot of detail, and it's one of those, oh no, don't take me to jail ones. And I just love the fact that the author chose a plot for this film about coercion and control, and the words used hard are in there. Although I will say, it does make sense that this is what Noah and Caleb would pick first. So maybe that's why she chose it, giving her the benefit of the doubt. Still doesn't make it better though, because she wrote Noah and Caleb that way. Noah's breathing turns ragged and he shifts under me, his hardening and rubbing me. I draw in a breath. You should go to bed now, he says in a low voice. Tiernan's loving this and doesn't want to go to bed, so he just takes it out. You want to watch? He whispers so quietly I can almost hear it. Sorry, I should whisper that. You want to watch? Okay. Sounds like a horror movie when I say it like that. Yes. His beautiful body glows and flexes as he himself, and I lick my lips, just wanting this one thing. I just want to see it. I am way too gay for this. Anyway, Tiernan starts helping herself out, which all I can say is that at the very least, I'm glad that she's genuinely into it this time. And then Caleb, who's also sitting in the corner this whole time, by the way, in case you've forgotten, also takes his out. And it's just the three of them all doing their things separately, but together. It's like a beautiful metaphor for family. This is when the two lads realize, oh wait, there is gonna be a girl here this winter, and she's hot. So all three of them decide that they're just gonna shag. Tiernan is still doing her thing when Jake comes in to ruin the party, and I swear to God, this poor girl never gets to finish. It's tragic. Jake is fuming, by the way, so much so that he grabs her by the wrists and is actually hurting her, and then he does spank her like he's been threatening to do. You gonna let those boys touch you again? I shake my head. No. He slaps me again, and I wince as my ass arches up to meet it. No what? He whispers. No, Uncle Jake, I answer properly. You people are deranged. The next day, we get Jake's POV again. Yay! They go hunting, and Tiernan doesn't want to shoot a deer, but Jake points out that they have a much better life than the meat that you buy at the supermarket, which, like, fair. He also says he needs to know that she can look after herself if anything were to happen to him, which also fair, I suppose. So she does shoot it, but then she's like really freaked out about this and ends up like wailing and hitting Jake repeatedly. There's a whole tussle of him trying to grab onto her arms to stop her from hitting him, but then this turns into them kissing and him feeling her up. Tiernan, who may or may not be still freaked out from the deer and crying, puts her hand down. Noah and Caleb are also around, by the way, but they don't seem to see them because they're so sneaky. Probably because of the camo that they're wearing in the snow. The boys are about to catch them though, so they go back to the truck. They take everything off except Tiernan has stripy long socks and pigtails, which is a choice. I don't know if the specific choice was to make her look like Pippi Longstocking or what. But it's still a choice. You know why my parents sent me to you? She asks, her voice barely a whisper. Because you're nothing for anyone to fear. I tense as she continues, her little kisses. You would never take my inheritance before I was old enough to claim it, she says, sick amusement in her voice as her fingernails glide down my stomach. It would never occur to you to force me to live here, or, she kisses my lips as she looks up into my eyes, or have the balls to stand up to me, a Dahas. I bare my teeth, my heart pumping wildly. Excuse me? So don't worry, she breathes out. I'm not afraid of you. You won't take anything you want. You're safe. Weak. My father said so. And then she gives me a condescending smile. I was never worried. She comes in for another peck and I jerk my lips away, glaring at her. He said that, did he? I shoot back, grab Hannes Dahas's daughter and yank her down, hearing her whimper as she slides down the seat. So Tiernan is a bit of a brat, it seems. Also, really doesn't seem like the time to be talking about your family, your shared family, but you both have issues, so What do I know? That's right. I want that piece of shit to hear his little girl scream wherever the hell he is. I want him to know how much she likes me and everything I do. This, by the way, that line I just read you, is another revised version, which is different in the ebook. In the audiobook, it was, I want him to know how much she loves her uncle Jake. They do the whole shebang, not once, but twice in the truck. It was so lovely of Tiernan's step-uncle and legal guardian in his 40s to wait to do this the day after her 18th birthday. What a saint. I'm too old. She's too young. This was a mistake. You said it, not me. Actually, you know what? I say it too. When they get home, though, a whole fight breaks up over Tiernan when the two sons realize what Jake and Tiernan just did, and it's all like alpha or whatever. But Jake wins, I guess, because Tiernan calls him into her bed and he goes. When Tiernan's leaving Jake's room that night, because that's where they ended up, after they did what they needed to do, Caleb is just standing in the hallway like a menace, and for some reason he's furious. So like a well-adjusted member of society, he grabs her, pulls her into her room, closes the door, pins her down, spits on her face, and drags a Sharpie across her forehead. This man needs to be jailed. Like, this is the personification of a red flag. He needs to be locked up in his attic room upstairs and never let out. And then, at breakfast the next day, Caleb spills water on Tiernan's lap and throws oatmeal at her face. Not only is he a menace, he's a bloody child. Because Caleb and Jake weren't already enough to deal with, later on, Noah starts telling Tiernan about how much he wanted her the other night. He also tells her that she has daddy issues, which, like, shocking information, but also a weird thing to say. His tight lips purse as he tightens the bolt. Daddy didn't love you, so you let mine you, so he will. I stare hard at him as he works, and even though his anger rocks me, because this is Noah, and Noah is always my friend, his words don't necessarily hurt. He needs to say something. He goes on. Maybe you're done without for so long. You're confused that sex means love. Which, I mean, yeah, true, but absolutely insane thing to say. Especially considering that this conversation turns into Noah and Tiernan getting themselves off next to each other again. Neither of them finish though, but it's okay because Tiernan runs off and runs into Jake's room and they get it on. Again. Beautiful familial relations. On another day, Tiernan is in the kitchen trying to sketch something when Caleb walks in, and she starts talking about how whenever she drew something, her parents would always throw it away. And she also talks about how bad it felt. And in a shocking turn of events, Caleb doesn't do the same thing her parents did just to spite her. He actually holds her, which also feels equally bad to me. Don't be fooled by this false redemption arc, by the way. Caleb is still a degenerate and a menace to society, and I will not be fooled into liking him, because remember, he just spat in her face. Noah continues to get weirder too, if any of us are surprised. And then he reaches out, grabs my sweater, and pulls me into him, my book falling onto the floor as he pulls my knees around him. I straddle his lap, growling as he wraps an arm around my waist and locks one fist to the back of my scalp. I plant my hands on his chest, trying to push myself away, but he holds me tight. Noah, stop it. You're drunk. The 4 empty beer bottles. 4? That's not enough to get drunk, especially considering he drinks every day. The 4 empty beer bottles on the table clank as I struggle, kicking the leg off the table. No, I'm bored. He inches up towards my mouth. I want to make love to you, Tiernan. I want to
Rock.
My father's little
Hell, girl.
Ew. These people could all benefit from therapy. When Senator DeHaven's son cornered me at the governor's ball with a couple of his frat buddies, I go on, promising to treat me right. I didn't want that either, and he got a bloody lip to show for it. When Terence Holcomb walked into that pond with his beautiful body, and just as many cocky words coming out of his mouth as you, I didn't escape into him for a few moments of instant gratification. I may have been a virgin when I came here, but I wasn't stupid. And when you all took me out for my birthday and I was dancing and some local guys were watching me, I couldn't care less, because all I could care about was you and Jake and, I throw a look at Caleb, and how you were watching me. Of course I didn't want or need anything from anyone else because I have everything I want in this house. I'm not some twit who latches on to anyone who shows her attention or soaks up affection from anyone who comes along. Jake didn't mark me. I chose. This is such a blatant attempt to try and justify everything that's going on. We're reminded over and over again in this book of how fragile Tiernan actually is, how she was never loved as a child, and how she's desperate to feel wanted. Her parents just died, and her new surrogate family pounce on her like a bunch of starving wolves. You can't undo all of that in one paragraph. I will not be fooled by this. I should mention at this point of the book that Jake goes away for a few days to go hunting. One night during Jake's absence, the barn catches on fire, and all three of them go out to try and stop it, but the pipes are frozen because it's winter. So Caleb gets in a digger and drives straight into the water tower, which then falls onto the barn and puts out the fire. The animals are all fine, thank God, because that is what I was most worried about, but unfortunately Caleb is also fine because I had really been hoping that the tower was going to fall onto him and crush him. But alas. Tiernan did manage to get herself hurt during all of this though. Her arm is cut and bleeding really badly, and Caleb has to give her stitches since obviously they can't bring her to the hospital. Tiernan is terrified about the stitches, so they give her tequila to try and calm her down, but she's still like, no, get away from me. To distract her or something, I guess, Caleb slaps her across the face when she's not expecting it. This seemingly works though, so Noah just starts like pulling her hair while Caleb gives her the stitches, and then Caleb slaps her again. It's a mess. I blow out long, slow breath as the world spins. Hands suddenly cup my face, caressing so softly now, like feathers, and then a mouth is on mine, gently kissing my lips. He nibbles and soothes, his teeth grabbing hold of my bottom lip and making my blood warm all the way down to my toes. That's Noah, by the way, and he also says that he loves her. Why not? Caleb is still stitching her though, so Noah proceeds to choke her and bite her neck. Truly the hero we all needed. You could have warned me, I tell Caleb, my voice thick with tears as I stare down at him. You could have hit me anywhere else. Why the face? Yeah, fair. But Noah turns, wiping his hands on a towel. You know, it just occurred to me. His eyes crinkle as he studies me. I'm actually the only man in this house who hasn't hit you, he states. And I'm the only one you don't want. What the is wrong with you? Once again, an insane thing for Noah to say, like, pick your moments, man. And somehow, don't ask me how, but somehow this devolves into the three of them at once having a great time. And I mean, they managed to get quite a lot done, I will say, quite a few angles and situations and scenarios there. I close my eyes, sated and high. I have no idea what tomorrow brings, but I can't bring myself to care. I'm exactly where I want to be, and for tonight at least, I'm staying. LA and my life there once upon a time is 1,000,000 miles away. This is my home. A while later the fire crackles as Noah sleeps soundly, and Caleb holds me to his body. I drift in and out, hearing the wind blow, but I'm warm and safe inside. That's great, but can we please remember that Noah is a weirdo and Caleb is a criminal, so maybe we shouldn't forgive them so easily? Tiernan continues to try and humanize Caleb the next day, probably because her hormones are making her confuse lust for caring about somebody. She tells him that even though you didn't say anything, I felt it. I felt you, and I heard you. Which technically, yes, she did feel him, but not like that. Like, this whole scene is so absurd to me. She's going, yeah, when you in the ass last night, I really felt you. I really heard you. Like, girl, get it together. Loving them has made something inside me wake up, and I don't want to go back to being who I was. I might wish this change could have happened differently, but some of us don't learn from the heat. We need the fire. But lo and behold, Jake is home early, which is just a little bit of a problem considering she had been with him, but last night she was just with his 2 sons, while Noah kept saying, this'll be our little secret. My father doesn't have to know. It's also a problem because the barn was on fire and the water tower is destroyed, in case we've forgotten that. So obviously Jake is like, what the hell? I stare at him, his lips a foot away as he dresses my wound. Something else happened last night, I whisper. He slows for a moment, but then continues, not looking at me. After the fire, I go on, with the boys. I don't blink and neither does he as he avoids my gaze. My stomach churns. Both of them? He asks, looking down to pick up some gauze he dropped on the floor. Imagine having to have this conversation. Like, hey, Uncle Jake, I know we've been shagging since I turned 18, but while you were gone in the snow to hunt because we're snowed in this winter, we destroyed your property and your sons DP'd me. Like, I would genuinely run away and never see these people ever again. His lips tighten as he wraps my arm. Were they good to you? His eyes water and I nod. He's not yelling. I'm not sure if I'm hurt that he's not jealous or thankful he's not disgusted with me, but he is jealous. His hard expression and clipped words tell me that. I open my mouth to explain. I love him, but You what him? Be for real for 5 seconds. You only started getting with this guy a few days ago. This is absurd. Anyway, Christmas is fast approaching and Tiernan wants to make a topper for the tree. So she's collecting sticks to make this, and Caleb is there too. Caleb drags her off with him, if you get what I mean, and she actually seems to be into it this time. He keeps trying to kiss her and be gentle with her, but she doesn't want that because he scares her. What an absolutely nightmarish scenario. Anyway, because of this, she's like, just bend me over. And eventually he does. Lovely. And for a second, we're right back and finishing what we started that first night we met. On a car, him taking what he wants and me not protesting fast enough because I don't want him to stop. We are absolutely not rewriting history here just because this book wants us to forget about Caleb and how bad he is. On that first night, she did want him to stop. She was repeatedly saying no and trying to push him away, and he wasn't listening. That is SA. That is a crime. That is not sexy. Literally, shut up. She eventually does want to kiss him though, and I guess they're like in love now or something. So, because of how horrific Jake and Caleb are, we often forget that Noah is actually a complete weirdo too. But don't worry, he always reminds us by saying something bizarre. Like later that day when he's helping Tiernan with with her arm, and he says this, "What if I never let you leave?" he murmurs, his breath tickling my lips. My chin trembles. What if his arm circles my waist and he pulls me in tight? What if a lot changed before the summer? I listen. What if he grabs my bottom lip between his teeth, making me suck in a breath before he releases it? What if we pumped you until you were pregnant? He whispers. To keep me here, I challenge, knocking me up on purpose. But he shakes his head. To keep you with me. I narrow my eyes. I open my mouth to speak, but I don't know what to say. Noah is who I should be with. If anyone, he's young, kind, attentive. He talks to me. I can grow with him. He's good. So why don't I tell him that? Hey, you know how your parents had a kid they didn't want, so you grew up having a tortured childhood? What if I knocked you up at 18 with a child that you don't want so that I can control you and keep you here with me forever? Wouldn't that be romantic? Like, how is your response to that? To be like, Noah is a good man, I should be with him. No, none of these men are good men. You should be with none of them, Tiernan. Penelope Douglas, are you okay? I look over his shoulder, seeing Caleb. I drop my hands from his brother. Noah turns and we both see Caleb's gaze on fire as he looks between us. He reaches over and I almost wince, bracing myself for him to grab me or hit Noah, but he simply takes my hand and holds my eyes as he calmly pulls me over to him. Caleb's not good, but he's the one I want, all to myself, right now. In the shower, dark and just us, with his arms around me. Stupid girl. You called yourself stupid. I didn't say anything. Caleb leads her to her room and then locks her inside, seemingly for no reason. This man is a maniac, and all I can hope for at this point is that Mirai is just going to drive up there and rescue Tiernan from this hell.
I'm very happy in my misery. I love to be miserable.
The next chapter is in Caleb's POV, but it's in third person, just so you're not confused about who's speaking here. Caleb circles the bed, not taking his eyes off her dark form under the covers. She exhausted herself. She bellowed for an hour in here when he locked her door, and now she's passed out. He's sick of her around. Him today in the barn, letting his father touch her and kiss her tonight, and then about to give it up for his brother when his back is turned. He's sick of seeing her smile when she works on her dumb in the shop. Sick of her excited by the snow or happy when she feeds the horses. Sick of seeing her hair fall across her cheeks as she reads at the dinner table, or how she twists her lips to the side when she's concentrating on an assignment. Sick of her cries at night and how pathetic she sounds during her nightmares. He stares down at her, cocking his head as her breathing turns shallow and she fists up her shirt at her collar. Her face tenses and she jerks. The nightmare is starting. Does this not feel like reading the book You? Or just the diary of a serial killer? So yeah, he essays her again with his hands while she's asleep. This man is a literal defender. She wakes up and at that point she's into it, but that doesn't excuse this even slightly. It's like this man has never heard the word consent in his life. And all while he's doing this, he's thinking horrific and degrading thoughts about her and how much he hates her. Like, is this meant to be hot? Seriously? They get it on, because why not? He wants to love her. He wants to please her. He wants to trust her and see her holding his baby someday. Does the author of this book have a breeding kink? Why does everyone in this book want to knock up an 18-year-old? Actually, no, Jake doesn't want to, at least, but he's still a creepy old man, so. And once again, we see another section where Penelope Douglas revised this book and changed it in the ebook version. In this scene, he starts tying her with the belt and they're doing what they're doing. And in the audiobook version, Tiernan says, "This doesn't feel good," but that was cut from the ebook. She doesn't cut out the fact, though, that Tiernan starts screaming for Caleb to stop multiple times, and he doesn't. He only stops because she manages to get her hands free and hits him and runs away. I can't use the word that I need to use here because I can't use that word on YouTube, but you've just written the or word into what's supposed to be a spicy romance novel. And you're trying to get me to like the character who's doing it. And Tiernan's gonna forgive him because of course that's how this author would write it. Tiernan runs into Noah's room for comfort and we are given Caleb's tragic backstory of why he doesn't speak. Apparently their mum was big into substances and one time she went to a party and left him in the car and just forgot about him for 4 days. He was 4 years old at the time and he hasn't spoken since then. And yeah, this is a horrific thing to happen to a child, but this story is being used to try and redeem the actions of an adult Caleb. It's saying like, yeah, Caleb does bad things, but he was traumatized by his mother. Like, I literally do not care. You don't get to take your anger out on your mother on other women and then it just be excused because you were traumatized. This man is a rapist and a piece of his reason for being those things do not in any way excuse him being those things. But the book sure wants you to think they do. He needs to be locked up. Tiernan goes out and hugs Caleb and is like, it's okay because this book is so easy to forgive actual crimes and violence against women. But it turns out that while she was with Noah, Caleb went and destroyed the furniture that she had been refurbishing, and this just reminds her of when her parents used to throw away her drawings. This man just can't stop for like 5 seconds, can he? Then Caleb runs into the woods to hide, and I hope he stays there forever and gets mauled by a bear. Caleb is gone for a week and Tiernan has been moody, which is absolutely understandable given the circumstances. The only problem is that she's moody about Caleb being gone and not the fact that he committed crimes against her. I'm sorry he did that to your piece, Jake tells me, holding his cup of coffee. But I just shrug. It doesn't matter. It's not like I was taking it with me in April anyway. I'm 18, I'm financially independent, and I don't belong here. Why would I stay? I feel Jake lean in, tense. This is your home. My eyes burn and I flex my jaw to keep my emotions from betraying that I kind of like hearing that. We love you, he adds. But I just snicker. So what did you think, I ask, still writing. I'd bed hop every night for the rest of my life, as if we weren't all completely insane. I was never gonna stay. Please, Tiernan, leave. Leave in April. Never contact these psychos again and just live your life. You're right, you are rich. You could go anywhere you want, go live by the beach if you want to, and find somebody normal or find no one at all if you don't want to. Just leave. We would have backed off, he says. Caleb is in love with you. Caleb, I breathe out a laugh, is an animal. I'd be surprised if he remembered the colour of my eyes right now. Like any girl, I only matter as much as his next piece of ass. That's what I'm good for to him. I finish writing my sentence. He wasn't right, Jake watches me as Noah sits quietly across from me, and he communicates by losing his temper. He was wrong, yes, but he was hurt. The only woman he ever loved forgot about him, almost killed him. He pauses. He's in love with you, Tiernan. He was jealous. I literally do not care. Repeat after me. A man's tragic backstory does not excuse his violent and volatile behaviour. At this point, I'm so sick and tired of everyone, Penelope Douglas included, trying to excuse Caleb. I'm still angry. And if he walked through the door right now and wanted to make amends, I'd probably roll over and lap up any scraps he wanted to offer. He would win. Just let this man die in the woods. We time skip to February, and in Caleb's absence, Tiernan has been almost happy. She's been doing things she likes and feeling free, and I just hope for her sake that he stays gone forever. Noah and Tiernan have another brother-sister style fight over the shower, which then turns into this. Do you love him? He asks. Because if you don't, then come in the shower with me, because my body is screaming. She does not enter the shower. She gets upset, realizing that she may never see Caleb again, even though that's the best outcome imaginable. And so she goes into his room to snoop. She finds that he's been writing little diary entries into the cover of books, and quite honestly, they are works of true poetry. It's funny how women come to me so easily now. They used to say I was stupid in school. Stupid. 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 Beautiful. Saw her smile today. I like having a girl around. You only yell at me now. I know it's my fault. I know I can't speak. I just can't. I'm not here. This is all I have and all I am. I can't. I'm not here. Like, yes, this is objectively sad and probably awful for him, but he's still a violent criminal. And I don't think that should be excused so easily just because he writes a diary. Still, Tiernan is emotional and crying while reading this. He also proceeds to give me whiplash with these 2 entries. God, she feels good. She looks like she'd be pudding in your fist. Soft. Too soft. It was so good though. Those seconds on the car that she let me bury my face in her body. Her skin is like water. I want her smell in my bed and in my hair and never far away from me. Immediately followed by... Why can't I leave? It's time to go in. I've been here too long. That stupid... Jesus Christ. There are also some revelations in these diaries, like the fact that he didn't actually hit Cece, or the fact that he has been coming into Tiernan's bed every night to soothe her when she has her night terrors. But this is immediately followed by an entry where he says he can't stop wanting to hurt her, which, like, whoa. Him wishing he didn't want to hurt her doesn't change the fact that he has. He is, and he will. You're still guilty. Tiernan doesn't seem to realize this though, and she's so moved by these entries that she goes to get Noah to help her get Caleb from the woods. After looking for ages and getting stuck in a storm, they finally find Caleb. Alive, sadly. I love you, Caleb, I cry quietly. I love you. Let's not be friends. Let's fight and laugh and make babies someday and go insane because I'm in love with you. I'm in hell. They go on to be coupley for ages and it's revolting, but I guess it's supposed to be happy. The book probably could have ended here, but no. Now Cece shows up and she's 6 months pregnant and claiming that it's Caleb's. If it's his, I might learn to live with it, even though that means living with her in our lives. If he knew about it all along though, say something, I tell him. Say something to me. Anything, please. Or write something then, I ask. Tell me anything. Tell me you love me. He just stands there though. Tiernan thinks to herself that she can't live with someone who refuses to communicate with her, which is fair because he can write, he's just choosing not to. But now Mirai has announced that she's coming and Tiernan's like, no, she can't come. Caleb's gonna scare her off and then Mirai's gonna drag me back to LA. Which, like, if that's your concern about the man that you apparently love, then maybe you do need to be dragged back to LA. She decides to go pick up Mirai at the airport and stay in a motel to avoid all of this. She writes Caleb a note saying that it hurts her that he won't communicate and that she needs time to learn about herself. She also meets Terrence as well because we're nearing the end of the book and everything needs to be resolved by now. Turns out he started the barn fire, which I had honestly thought it was going to turn out to be Caleb, but no, it's just one of the other dirtbags. Then we skip ahead a little bit again and Tiernan is in LA and miserable. Everything feels foreign now. I look around my parents' white kitchen, pristine marble countertops and chrome appliances. This isn't my home. You're rich. Go buy a new home. Do not go back to the cabin in the woods. I stare out at the ocean, the salt and sea in the air making me smile a little. 6 weeks. 6 weeks back in California and the days are getting easier. The auction will be happening soon. I've redecorated my bedroom and revamped some of the furniture in the house. And I've chosen a design school in Seattle to attend college in the fall. I have a few months to travel or do just about anything I want to do before school starts. I've called Jake, he's called me. I lie back, falling onto the sand, ready to feel the small drops on my face. But as I look up, someone stands over me, looking down. Hey, he says. Noah? This girl just can't escape. It turns out Noah's been living there for like 6 weeks as well. And it also turns out that Noah found her because Jake had put a tracking app in her phone. Just a very normal thing to do. Tiernan goes back to her house, but Jake is there for some reason, and I need these people to leave her alone. Also, he's flirting with Mirai, which, like, please stop. But I guess it's age appropriate, at least. Someone steps out from around the tree, and I stop, meeting his eyes. Caleb looks at me. Oh God, please, no. I can't believe you're here, I tell him just above a whisper. You actually left Colorado. It was time, he says. I suck in a breath, his words hitting me like a truck. What? I slide off the tire and turn to face him, not believing what I just heard. Deep but soft, clear and strong. He spoke. Caleb spoke. Walking around the tire, he steps toward me. My home is where you are, he says quietly. Are any of us surprised that this is how this book ends, with him learning how to speak? Because as soon as they started trying to force a redemption arc, I just knew this is what was going to happen. She tells him that she loves him, and for the first time, he says it back. And for the millionth time, I want to scream. By the way, Cece was lying. The baby is Terrence's, and Terrence is in jail now, so it's all a bit of a mess, really. The book then skips ahead 5 years in the epilogue. This begins with an adult scene between Caleb and Tiernan, who are still together, unfortunately. Tiernan finished her degree, and at this point we also find out that they have an 18-month-old child, which I'm just now convinced that this book has an agenda about babies. They called their son Griff, which also just seems like another crime itself. They also live in the mountain house, presumably getting snowed in the winters, and Jake goes to California a lot now for work. And that's just how this book ends. Them happy and together and parenting, and me screaming internally. Where do I even begin? This book was so unbelievably bad, and I went into it knowing some of what was going to happen, but nothing could have prepared me for how awful it actually is. Like, I'm still stunned by it. It's marketed as a taboo, forbidden romance, but it's actually just a grown man and his 2 sons taking advantage of an emotionally fragile teenager who happens to also be somewhat related to them but not biologically. And on that topic, the book keeps saying like, oh, well, they're not actually related, you know, they're step relatives, so it's fine, but all the while pushing familial kind of ties between them. Like, when they start shagging, Jake doesn't stop treating Tiernan like he's a parental figure. The whole time, he's still telling her what to do, giving her chores, being in charge of her as her legal guardian, even though he's not technically at this point because she's 18, but he still keeps acting like a parent to her. Noah keeps acting like a brother to her the whole time. And Caleb or-worded her, essayed her, assaulted her, attacked her, and multiple other things, but he's still the one that she got with at the end of the book. I'm actually just in shock that the author thought, that seems right. I'm genuinely worried about the author of this book. And I will say, I didn't go into this intending to speak about the author directly, but how can you not? The author chose to write a book where the protagonist ends up in a relationship with the guy who essayed her. Nothing in this is okay. And I don't want you guys to think that I'm some kind of a prude, right? Okay? Have your taboos, have your forbidden romances, but don't think for a second that this book is just a taboo or a forbidden romance or anything like that. This book is deranged. It's a horror story marketed as a romance. And anybody who knows me knows how much I despise Freud. So if you could all stop trying to prove him right, I would really appreciate that, because so many people seem to love this book. I'm never going to understand it. I want to take a moment to say that this was really hard to do, this video. I don't just mean the subject matter, I mean technically speaking, it just took a long time. I mean, I had to read the book twice, I had to write a whole script, take notes. I've never made this kind of video before, it was all new to me, and this is the longest I've ever recorded for in my life for a single video. I really did enjoy making this video, I genuinely did. It was nice to do something new. I think I'd like to do more kind of book stuff. but unfortunately, since this isn't my usual kind of content, this is gonna flop terribly and probably will also be demonetized because obvious reasons. So if you would like to support me, please do consider checking out the Patreon. I always feel weird asking, but like, I'd like to do more of these kinds of content, but it's really hard and I'm probably not even gonna make any money off this video. So if you would like to support me, check out the Patreon. There's loads of different benefits. There's, you know, Patreon exclusive merch that you can get and different things, access to the group chat that's patron only, and the first tier starts at $1. There's different tiers as well. You can also check out the YouTube memberships, and you could also just leave a super thanks if you don't want to subscribe to something or you just want to give a once off thank you. But don't feel obliged to do any of those things if you can't or you don't want to. I'm just very happy that you've made it this far in the video and I really appreciate it, so thank you so much. If you could do me the favor of sharing this with somebody who you think might enjoy it, because like I said, this video is gonna flop because it's not my usual content, but I enjoyed it and I'd like to do more. I also have like a whole list of books that I would like to review. So thank you so much for watching. I really do hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe. If you've made it this far and you're not subscribed, you probably should for future book stuff, you know? Turn on notifications. Follow me everywhere. I am VangelinaSkov on all social media. Like, comment, share, and don't forget to check out Bellesa. Thank you to Bellesa for sponsoring today's video, and thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!